Bradley Lowery, the before, the during and the after. I'm Gemma Lowery. I'm the CEO of the Bradley Lowery Foundation and Bradley's mum.
And I'm Lynn Murphy. I am the COO of the Bradley Lowery Foundation. We're here today and we are going to be speaking with Gemma about life before Brad. Gemma, who is Gemma Lowery?
That is a good question because I don't really know. So Gemma Lowery is 36 years old.
Let's not tell fibs. You've been 36 for 5 years.
That's a standing joke because the papers always say I'm 36. So Lynn fumes when she reads that I'm 36. However, I'm actually 40 years old now. So I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a CEO.
You're a friend.
I'm a friend. I've got another business that I am director of. But let's go back to the beginning. So I was born in a little town called Blackhall Colliery, a beautiful little mining town near the seaside. I grew up in a household with my mum, my dad and my 2 brothers. And then when I was 16, I met my husband, Carl Lowery, and we got together. I went to college and at 18, myself and Carl fell pregnant with our older son, Kieran. I had some time out of education and employment to have Kieran. And then when he was a year old, I went to work at a hospital at Hartlepool. I did this for a few years before I got a new job with the NHS in the community. Whilst I worked this job, I went to university and I did a degree in health and social care. Fast forward a few years, had my job in the NHS working in the community, in the final year of my university doing my dissertation, and I was pregnant with Bradley.
That must have been hard, being pregnant and doing a dissertation and going through university, was it?
Yes, I think it was actually. I tend to thrive on pressure and stress, I think. But yes, I was working full time. I had Kieran at football 5 times a week and I was doing a dissertation and I was extremely poorly with morning sickness with Bradley. So yeah, it was a difficult time, but like I say, I tend to do better when I'm stressed. So I just kind of got on with it. Then Bradley came along, beautiful baby boy, perfect birth. I had him in a water birth. As birth goes, it was pretty good. Bradley was absolutely gorgeous. I went back to work after 10 months. Bradley went to nursery, and then Bradley started becoming poorly.
So how old was he when you first started noticing him becoming poorly?
So at the time, he was 18 months when I noticed that he was generally getting viral infections after viral infections. But looking back, I can now pinpoint the times when I thought it started happening. So Bradley became extremely poorly at the beginning of January, and he was admitted into hospital on the 4th of January. And then on the 7th of January, he was diagnosed with a neuroblastoma, which is a very aggressive childhood cancer. However, now looking back, I believe that he started becoming poorly September, August time.
Is that when you started going to the doctors and getting different?
Yes, he had
things?
Scans on his kidneys in the October. Didn't show anything up. Backwards and forwards to the doctors with viral infections, just temperatures, generally feeling unwell. And then by the end, he was so poorly, he wasn't lifting his head up off my chest. He wasn't eating, he wasn't drinking. I took him to the doctors and they said that there was nothing wrong with him. Very dismissive, very, very rude.
Overprotective parent, were you?
Well, apparently, yes. But I just think parents...
You know.
Yeah, you do, and I knew there was something up. So the Wednesday I took him, they said, go home, there's nothing wrong with him, he's viral. Took him back the Friday, said, there is something wrong with my child. I don't know what it is, but there's something wrong. The doctor acknowledged that there was something wrong, but he also acknowledged he didn't have a clue what it was, which is fair enough. Mm-hmm. So on that night, I took him through to A&E, Sunderland General Hospital. They were absolutely fantastic. Done some scans, some x-rays, some bloods, and said, you need to get Bradley up to the RVI.
So the RVI, that's the Royal Victoria Infirmary in Newcastle, isn't it?
That's right. But the issue that we had is I was at the time I was like, no problem, let's go up. Never in a million years did I think it was going to be anything sincere. I just thought he might have had a hernia, or, there might be something that he just needs a little bit of help for.
Mm-hmm.
But then they said, we need to take you up in an ambulance. And I went, this is when I started panicking.
So was Carl with you at this point?
Carl was with us. Kieran was at my mum and dad's house, I think, or at Carl's mum and dad's. I can't remember now where he was, because it was a Friday night. And I started really panicking. I was thinking, no, I don't want to go in an ambulance. That means there's something really wrong with him. And then they said, but we will have to put the blue lights on as well. And this is when I started crying, because I thought, ambulance, blue lights, RVI, there's something going on here and I don't know what. I'm the person that likes to know everything. So I was really struggling at this point to understand what was going on. Carl was going to come through the RVI with us, but it was my older son, Kieran's birthday on the Sunday, and he was going to go and watch Sunderland play football at Bolton. Bolton, yeah.
Yeah.
On the Saturday for his present, because he absolutely loves Sunderland through and through. So I said to Carl, you can't come with us, you need to go home, because that bear needs to go and watch this football match. It's his birthday present. We'll be fine. I'll ring you tomorrow. We'll be out. So Carl went home, and I remember him telling us, as he was following the ambulance out, he started crying because he didn't know what was happening. Mm-hmm. And he knew he had to go home for Kieran, but he wanted to be with me and Bradley. So when I got to the hospital, we went into A&E, the children's part, and they had monitors on. His heart rate was absolutely through the roof. At the time, I wasn't aware what was normal and what wasn't. Yeah. I was just a normal mum, and I was just thinking, what on earth is going on? Doctors kept coming in, feeling his tummy, going back out again. I just really didn't know what was going on, wasn't told anything. I just got told that we were going up to the ward and that we would get more scans the next day. They're not sure what's happening. So the next day came around. Carl went to watch Sunderland play with Kieran, and my mum and dad came up to the hospital. We went down for a scan, and within half an hour, the consultant was sat in front of us, and she said, I'm going to tell you something that's not nice to hear. Your child has a lump. But because I was from NHS background and I worked for the NHS for many years, and I did, cancer awareness, and everything I did was around preventing diseases such as cancer.
Yeah.
I knew what she was talking about straight away. But she then went on to say, in medical terms, we'd call a lump a tumour. And I said, right, okay. So is it cancerous? Because I was aware that not all lumps are cancerous. Yeah. Not all tumours are cancerous. And she said, yes, with a pause. So I said, okay, what are you going to do about it? And she said, the type of cancer I believe it is, by this time it's probably spread all over his body. And it was then I started crying and kind of realising what was happening. I looked at my mum and dad and they were both crying, and my dad never cried. Mm-hmm. And I looked at Bradley and I looked at mum and dad and I looked at the doctor, and I just then started, obviously, I broke down.
Yeah.
I was thinking, what on earth?
Especially considering you've been going to the doctors for months beforehand with different things and nothing had been found. Did they say how big the tumour was?
It was 13 centimetres.
Wow.
And he was 18 months old.
Wow.
And 2 doctors on that week failed to detect it. Mm-hmm. One of the doctors said he thinks he might have a hernia, and it was 13 centimetres.
Yeah.
Like,
the frustration kind of kicks in as well.
So frustrating. Bradley really deteriorated massively within every half an hour. You could see how much he was deteriorating. Mm-hmm. Carl was still watching Sunderland.
Yeah.
And I remember messaging him saying, "Oh, he has a lump," and Carl messaged back saying, "What a lump of coal." This was before I knew it was cancerous.
Yeah.
What a lump of coal, and laughing about it. And I was like, "Oh, goodness knows," but they want to do more tests. It's probably just a hernia. when I found out he had cancer, there was no way I could, there was absolutely no way I could tell his dad, that was 2.5 hours drive away, that his child had cancer.
Yeah.
Bradley, like I said, he was deteriorating extremely fast, so they moved us onto the oncology ward so they could get some morphine into him, really, because of the pain. And I said to Carl, I want you to come up and see us when you get back. I've had such a hard day. You know, I'm really tired. I just need a cuddle. He should have known then there was something wrong, because that wouldn't be on me when I say it. My dad went down to pick Carl and Kieran up. It was Kieran's birthday the next day, and I'd never spent any birthdays away from him. And I just remember Carl coming, and I had to go out in the corridor because we're already on the children's cancer ward. And I just remember getting up, going to see him. He went, "What's wrong? There's something wrong." And I just said that he's got cancer. Our little boy, he's got cancer. And Carl, he just collapsed in my arms in the middle of a corridor. And it was one of the hardest things that I've had to say to anyone. But all I wanted was him. All I wanted was a cuddle off him. Like, all day I waited and waited and waited because I just wanted him. I had my mum and dad there. I had Carl's mum and dad there. But the only thing I wanted was him. So when he kind of pulled himself together, I know it's not the right word, but it's my words. We went into the ward, and Carl just laid on the bed with Bradley, and he just didn't speak. So then I had to speak to Kieran because it was his birthday the next day, and I just said to him, I went into the playroom, and I just said, "So Bradley's really poorly, and we have to stay in, but I would like you to stop with us." And he went, "Okay, Mum, I'll do that." And I think it was his 11th birthday coming up on the Sunday. And I said, the doctors have found a lump. And he's not stupid. He just said, "Please don't tell me my baby brother's got cancer." And I just said, "No, I'm not telling you that because we don't know for 100% definite." I said, "But if he has, we'll sort it, we'll get through it." And then my mum and dad home, and Kieran stopped in the room with us, and he just looked at us and he said, "Mum, I'm so sorry, but I can't stop here at night. I really want to for you, but I can't." And I said, "It's okay, son. I'll get your granddaughter to come pick you up." So I phoned my dad, and bearing in mind it's about 45 minutes to an hour, the RVI, depending on traffic, from my house. So phoned my dad, third time, bless him, came driving up and picked the bairn up and took him home. And then that night I just sat in the toilet, just crying all night. Carl wouldn't speak. I think he was in shock. He was just laid on the bed, cuddling Bradley, and I was just laid on the bathroom floor, wishing that I had Kieran there, hoping that was going to be a dream, a nightmare when I woke up. But it wasn't. When the next day came, the sun rose and we were still in the nightmare. And Carl, this is the funny part, because we're Sunderland fans, Carl woke up, looked out of the window, he said, "If it's not bad enough that my son's been diagnosed with cancer, I now have to look at St James's Park." Because it's right next to Newcastle Stadium. That made us laugh.
Yeah.
And then the next day, it was Kieran's birthday, and they came up and the ward was amazing. They'd done a little party, and Bradley was on his machines and stuff.
So your dad, he was always your rock.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
He was.
Grandad, how he was known by. I can always remember in the village when it kind of came out, the whole village was in shock because it was like that type of thing didn't happen in this village. It was like,
well, you don't hear about
you don't hear it.
Yeah, you don't hear about childhood cancer until you're going through it. You don't hear about it, and everybody just rallied around and done absolutely everything. For us, the village, the community were incredible. My dad was there every single day. And I think I'll talk about it on my next podcast, kind of how lonely it was, but how much support I also got throughout treatment. But the next, what I thought was going to be, the doctors on the Monday, Bradley went down to get biopsy. He also went down to get what we call a central line, which would be known as his wigglies. So got 2 tubes coming out of his chest. Sat in what we call the bad news room. And the doctors just said, It's confirmed that it's neuroblastoma. It's stage 4, which is the one before death.
Yeah.
It would spread. He had a 13 centimetre tumour in his tummy. It started on his adrenal gland and wrapped itself all the way around all of his arteries, his veins. He had tumours in his chest, his lungs, his bones were covered in his bone marrow. And I know this sounds silly, but I asked if it was in his face or his head, because a lot of neuroblastoma children do get it there.
Mm-hmm.
And me being me, I was reading straight up about it, and there wasn't any in his bone or his head. And I just remember thanking God that it wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a bit of a bit of positive for me in a very, very negative time.
Yeah.
But his little body was covered, and the weeks leading after that, he was just laid, attached to machines, couldn't move, it was very touch and go. They didn't know whether he was going to survive because it had spread so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
He started chemotherapy, and then I just remember his first smile. It was it was lovely. It was absolutely lovely, because he hadn't smiled for weeks, and then he just looked at us and he just gave us that smile, and it was like, everything's going to be okay.
Melts your fears away, doesn't it, when you see him smile? It's the one thing you could always say with Brad, doesn't matter what he was going through, he put a smile on everybody else's face, even when he was feeling crap. He put a smile on everybody else's face and made sure that they were looked after and they were happy.
Yeah, he was very caring. And just at that moment when he came through that initial few weeks where we didn't know whether he'd survive, and he did his best smile, it was just like, everything's going to be okay, Mammy. And bear in mind, he was a baby. He was 19 months by this time. He was only a baby. He'd only just started talking, walking. Then he was off his bottles. He was off everything, because he was tube fed from then on until he built his strength up and obviously could eat again. And yeah, but like I say, I'll discuss treatment and stuff on another podcast. But
you done potty training while he was in hospital, didn't you? That must have been fun for you.
It was him that wanted it. I think how old was he? He must have just been gone 2 months. And he was like, Mummy, no nappy, toilet. Bear in mind, I had about 10 machines hanging off him. All these wires. I was like, oh my goodness, you'd pick your times, Bradley. And he was like, Mummy, toilet. So I used to have to get hold of him, take all the machines, put him on the toilet. In the end, I managed just to get a potty and put him on the potty. But it was him that wanted to do it. It was 2 years and 2 months. Some children don't get potty trained till after treatment altogether, when they're a bit older. But he was determined. He was not putting a nappy on like a baby, which was very fun when you've got lots of hydration going through the lines and you need to be on the toilet every 15-20 minutes. But yeah, he always knew what he wanted, and he always got what he wanted.
He was always a good talker as well, wasn't he? Like from a very young age, sitting having a conversation rather than just, some children going through treatment are delayed, whereas Brad didn't seem delayed at all when it came to speaking and things like that. He was always very forward. Speaking,
he was good. He was a good little speaker, but he was massively delayed in kind of anything academic. So he wouldn't be writing his name, or he wouldn't be reading and things like that when he eventually got to school. But as a baby, I feel like his milestones still got hit, even though he was going through that treatment. But then again, I literally sat for 12, 14 hours a day with him, doing reading, watching TV. And so he had a lot of one-to-one interaction that some children might not get otherwise.
Definitely. Well, I think for today, we'll call it a day, and we'll come back.
That was very emotional, so I feel like I need a breather.
You're doing very, very well. And I think, next time we'll obviously speak about some of the treatments that he went through and how that made you feel, and, the rest of the family, because it doesn't just affect immediate family, it affects everybody, so that's something that we're going to be talking about on the next podcast.
And how lonely it is.
Yeah.
Being a cancer mum, and I know some people don't like that word, cancer mum, but being a cancer mum it is extremely lonely.
You could be surrounded by 100 people and still
you
feel
still feel
like
alone.
no one.
Absolutely. So some things that we can talk about on our next round.
Definitely. So stay tuned and we'll hear from you soon.